Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. And today we are very excited to bring back to you guys one of your guys' favorite guests that we've ever had. I think the second most viewed episode we've ever done out of now.
Wow.
This will be 100. I think by the time of this post, it'll be 105, which is awesome. And it's fitting because you have such an unbelievable story, such an unbelievable perspective, and a true testament to everything we discuss on this podcast episode, how to battle through life's greatest challenge with a smile on your face, even though there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. Just figuring out the whole roller coaster and still living life to its highest potential throughout everything. So we're very excited to bring back for the second time Miss Leigh Ann Modesitt. So thank you for being here, Leigh Ann.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, how's things been?
A roller coaster for sure. I think a lot's happened since I...
That's how it goes, I think, in life in general, but especially when you're battling through cancer. It's wild how you can just go from like such a good day to like, you know, even the next day or 2 days later or whatever, you can just be like, oh my gosh, I'm back here again. Like, how did I even get here again? What's kind of been your journey since you were on? It's been probably a little over a year ago now since you were on last time, correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
I had my back surgery then,
Yeah, I think it was April because Lily was not quite born yet, but Lauren was definitely getting pretty pregnant at that point. So I think you say it's been a little over a year.
Yeah. Oh, it was right after my 5 year.
Oh yeah, your 5 year, yeah.
Transplant birthday. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So just about a year. Gosh, everything changes day by day, and it's so annoying. There'll be days where I feel, okay, and then days that I sleep all day long and wake up to go to the bathroom or take my pills, and that's it. Hi. You went down?
Joey's a little camera shy.
I think he got hot.
He's a good boy though.
Joey got us sidetracked. But then there's the few days in between, like every now and then, that just seems like such a normal before cancer day. And those days, though few and far between, are days where I'll just, look over to Sean sometimes and be like, oh, gosh, it's hard to remember when things were this easy and uncomplicated and just, good days.
Yeah. And that just feeling of pure joy and gratitude you have on those days is indescribable, I think. But I think it's because of what you're going through that, like, you feel those emotions so intensely, especially on those good days, like, because you know how tough it can be sometimes. And so on the days where you're feeling good, or you have those moments of just like what so many people would classify just like normalcy, or just like simple, like normal movement and life and flow. It gives you so much joy and gratitude for those moments.
But then sometimes I think it also does the opposite, that you have that excitement about it, but then also like, gosh, like this is also what I'm missing every day.
And it's somewhere internally, it's fleeting too. Like it's only going to last for so long before, things start going downhill again.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's certainly a difficult thing to battle. But it's not something that like has to rule or has to own your entire life, I suppose. How do you navigate through those ups and downs? And even though like there's those moments of joy, there's the moments of sadness and mourning as well. How do you keep showing up every day to kind of navigate through that?
I think that this is also a good opportunity to talk about our caregivers that are on the outside of all of that at the same time, and showing up for them. But more importantly, I'm lucky enough to have an incredible husband, and when I go through those up and down days, there are times that just really get to him, that he has to watch through all of that and can't fix it, can't do anything really to make it better what you're going through. And it gets to him sometimes. I'll look over sometimes at night and he'll just be teared up, or I'm sure he probably doesn't want me to talk about this part, but and they sometimes, I think they have it harder than we do, and he shows up for me all day, every day, and more, and all I can do is push to do the same for him in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful perspective, and I agree 100%. There's a lot of cases where the caregivers have it harder than the patient. And I had never, it's a concept I understood, especially after talking to Natalie, and like how she battled through cancer watched her 5-year-old son battle through cancer for 3 years, and fought with him by his side every day of it. But, so it's a perspective I was definitely aware of, and had appreciation for, but it's not something I had ever fully experienced myself until just this past December. I'd never really been like in the trenches as a caregiver before. Like, yeah, I've like helped take care of people when they're sick, or I've been, I've had friends that like had cancer, even very close friends of mine, but I'd never like been like in the trenches, like during the fight, like while you're pulling over the side of the road so they can get out of the car and throw up, like stuff like that. And I experienced that for the first time with Austin going through his stem cell transplant this December, and it affected me in ways emotionally and mentally that I never would have expected. It was just so hard for somebody you deeply love and deeply care about to have to there's sometimes you just feel like you're sitting and watching them go through it, and you want to do a million things to make it better. Like, I want to cook for him, I want to offer him food, I want to offer like all these things that aren't actually going to make it better. It's you just literally, and he and I have talked about this even on the show, it's literally just a battle of letting time pass. And the hard part about that is you can't speed time up.
Yeah.
Like, we have no control over time, and all he could do at that point when he was the sickest was sleep, or you don't really get good restful sleep when you're on heavy chemo like that, that, but let him rest enough so that he could get it in the car and make it to the appointment the next day. That's really all you could do. And there's a lot of ways that period was more difficult than a lot of the things I've experienced personally, because for me, even though it can be challenging, like, I've been through so much medical stuff at this point, like from going through cancer to like my abdominal reconstruction to, this, that, and the other, all these different things, that it was like I just get into a routine of it, and it's like, it sucks and it's hard, but it's not hard for me to like stay resolute, keep that smile on my face, and you just keep pushing forward. But it was so much harder to feel so helpless in those moments, or not feel helpless, but feel like you don't have any power over the situation, any control over the situation. Like, there was nothing I could do for him to make him feel better in those worst days, besides just simply be there for them. And I think from our perspective as patients, like, that's everything. Like, that's everything we need and everything we could ever ask for. And like you say, Sean shows up for you in ways that like are life-changing for you every day. But I don't know if he would always feel like he's providing like life-changing support. So it's hard for the caregivers because you want to be able to do stuff. And really there's nothing you can do. You can just be there for him, but it's really hard to battle through those feelings of, I have no power, I have no control over this situation. But the caregivers are the ones who give us so much of the strength and a reason to show up and a reason to keep fighting. Just like you mentioned, because he has to give you so much drive to keep that smile on your face, because you know that it'll give him peace and comfort at the end of the day.
And I think too that sometimes, like you're talking about, the transplant is something that is so, just destroys your body, and recovering from it is a process. And I have a friend of ours who just went in for her transplant this past week, and a friend of mine were up in our appointments and went over to see her with our husbands, and Sean had no interest of going up to even that stem cell transplant ward. It was traumatic for him. He doesn't want to relive it. Yeah. He doesn't want to relive my first hospital stay, my back surgery stay. It was very traumatic for him, and he carries that with him. My mom, sometimes she'll go in denial world, because it's just too much for her to carry from time to time. And but our spouses or our partners or good friends or whatnot that are with us 24/7, they see the behind the scenes where you're not putting on that smile or that face when you don't feel good. They're not there. I had several weeks of an issue earlier this spring, and I would cry in my sleep, and then I'm keeping him up because he doesn't want to wake me up because I finally got to sleep, but it's killing him to watch me in so much pain that I'm crying through my sleep. And so we put a lot on them, and I think if anything, we had a great marriage before diagnosis, but it's made us so much stronger in a bond. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but I'm grateful that of our relationship and our respect for each other. But we put a lot on them, and we hurt them unintentionally, and I hate that.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Like you say there, it's true of so many aspects of life, but it's especially true that overcoming challenge is one of the greatest ways, and perhaps the only or the best way to build strength. And that's true personally, but it's also true in a relationship. And so, like you and your husband, like you say, you had a strong, healthy marriage beforehand, which I think you almost have to make it through some of these things. But then certainly now, if you have that as your foundation with everything you've battled through together now, it can change your whole worldview and your whole perspective regarding that relationship and your appreciation for just how precious it is. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he would say the same thing, that showing up for you is something that keeps him performing the best he can and keeps him showing up every single day as the best person he can possibly be to help provide anything he can for you.
Yeah.
And that's truly incredible. That's an impossible thing to build in and of itself. And that's, I hate to call it like an achievement, because it's not something that you like cross the finish line and you're done and you're there and you get it. Because it's something you build, continue. It's what would be described as like an infinite game. It's a game you never win. but you can always keep getting better at.
Yeah.
And those are the best, most long-term rewarding games, I guess, in quotations, to play in life, because there's never like a final victory moment, but there's continual victory days, on and on and on for the rest of your life, and they'll never end as long as you keep growing in that capacity. Do you ever find it, or was there a point, if not now, do you ever find it tough to like communicate some of the things you're experiencing to him, because of like, oh, this could like really upset him, or like could ruin his day, or anything like that? Do you ever find it hard to communicate because you don't want to like hurt him in some way?
Yeah. And I know you and I were talking a little bit earlier about this, especially because I think that there's also guilt that you're the reason he's not doing something, or you're the reason that he's not going somewhere, or you're going to tell him something that's going to hurt him or scare him. And he was offered his this huge job promotion a few months ago, and he turned it down without hesitation. And this was the goal all along, the closer he gets to retirement, and he turned it down. And they did not take no lightly. They tried several times to change his mind, but it was a lot of travel, and he told them that he didn't want to look back and regret not spending every moment he can with me, because the simplest thing could happen, and just with our immune systems and everything else, you can go from seemingly okay to a mold spore taking over your body. And I think that although he will deny it to the core, I know that is in the back of his mind sometimes, that how long do we have?
Yeah. And it would be hard to like never let that cross your mind, but I think when you approach it with the kind of mindset that it sounds like he has clearly from the actions he's made in your guys' life together, when you approach it from this mindset of just purely focusing on and appreciating every moment you do get together, it in a lot of ways you live so much more of a beautiful and an enriched experience together than you would have if you had 100 years together.
Yeah.
I think quality can be so much more powerful of a goal to chase than quantity.
Yeah.
I think that's true across pretty much any goal we chase. I can't think of an instance where more whatever is better as opposed to just higher quality whatever, and I think that's certainly true when it comes to relationships. But I'll be honest with you, like that's something, and I don't know if you ever think about this or not, but it's something I think about too. And it, in some ways it and I think it used to more than it does now, but some ways it kind of haunts me a little bit. But I feel that going away, or I feel that less and less over time. It's this idea of like, well, how much time am I going to have? I recently went to, I was actually in the bridal party for a good friend of mine wedding, and I was really good friends with his mom, and she passed away last year. It's been just now a little over a year, and I couldn't help but think, we have to keep myself together here. I couldn't help but think, because he never got to have that like dance with his mom at the wedding. And when they were doing it was particularly when they were doing the father-daughter dance with his now wife and her dad. And I'm like holding Lily, and she's like passed out on my chest. And you can't help but think, like, am I going to be here for this? And those are really tough thoughts to face. But the solution I've found to that is, even if I'm not there for that, I'm going to make sure that I am there for every moment I get. And so it's like that moment, just like I was standing up, just kind of like swaying, like dancing with her at that wedding. And I'm like, you know what, even if I'm not there for that, I'm not going to worry about that, because I don't have control over that. I can't control that future outcome, which may or may not exist.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to put a lot of time into worrying or stressing about it. I'm going to put all of my time and energy and focus into this moment I have with her now. And if I do that right, and I do it enough times at the best quality that I can, then in a way I'll be with her forever, because she'll always remember and always have those moments, you know. So I think that's doesn't fix the problem, it doesn't fix the worry, but I think it's a potential antidote to it, and definitely a solution to it. And I would venture to guess, from Sean's perspective too, like, he's probably got that same mindset of just like making every moment you guys have together the best moment you can, even if they're on hard days, because he'll always have and he'll always remember those moments, you know. And I think that will give him, because of the strength and the quality of a relationship you guys have, that will give him so much comfort for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
No matter what comes.
I made the mistake one time about we tell each other everything, mm-hmm. you know, there aren't lies, there are, you know, we just we talk all the time, and we, you know, are each other's best friend. And I made the mistake one time. He was golfing, and I think maybe I had a scary test result, or I have these chest episodes that are pretty rough, and whatever it was, I can't remember. But I waited until he always texts, you know, at the end when he's done, or in the turn at 9, and or calls, and I waited until later on in the game to tell him, and he was so mad at me. But I didn't want to ruin. I mean, it wasn't going to change the result. Nothing was going to happen in that time frame. It wasn't detrimental, and I knew that his golf game would suffer the remaining holes, because his mind would be, instead of having fun with the guys, you know, taking some well-deserved away time. I knew that would be on his head. So I had to swear that I would, you know, not keep that from him. And, you know, again, I would tell him, you know, as soon as I know. But you know, I mean, it didn't change anything, so why ruin his day of fun, you know? But so yeah, I don't like telling him stuff, to your original question, but I didn't once, and that won't happen again.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, and I don't know how I built up this, because I'm generally a pretty like open book, like especially on our podcasts and our social media platforms and everything. I can open up about a lot of stuff, especially everything that like I experienced going through cancer. But I think in a lot of ways, those, at least not anymore, those are not the things that like I struggle with the most, or that I like grapple with the most internally. Because I've had time now, I've certainly spoken about it so many times that I've processed those, I've worked through those. They're not really things that like stay with me or like haunt me anymore. But I noticed that I have a really hard time like deeply opening up to people about the things that just like spin around in my head. You know, I have this tendency where I can just like, I can zone out for like a few minutes just in this totally different world of thought and back and forth battle of thinking about whatever subject it may be. And I really have a hard time opening up about that stuff, even and especially to the people that I care about most. And I didn't really know why, or I didn't really think about it too much, but I think over time I kind of programmed myself to be this way, to like keep a lot of the things I struggle with internalized so that I don't put that burden on other people, especially the people I care about the most. And it wasn't until like very recently, like within the past few months, I really started making like true conscious effort and action to open up about a lot of those things to Lauren, even if they're things that like aren't problems that need to be solved. Just like telling her things that are like on my mind and on my heart. It's only been very recently that I've been able to do that. And I even told her this, but for so long it was like I struggled because I didn't want her to like, I think I didn't want her to like see weakness in me or think any less of me. And I know consciously that she would never ever do that. Like, she's one of the best people in this world, but still it's like I had this internal fear that like I had created that kept me from doing that. But I've been able to make like true conscious effort to do that more, to open up more and just tell her things that are on my mind, not because I have to or I have any specific reason to or that I need an answer, but just to like let her know like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about, this is what I'm feeling right now about whatever it may be. And that has been such a profoundly positive thing for me, like just being able to share that with her and open up with her in that way. And I think it's really like, our marriage was in a good spot beforehand, but I think it's really brought it to like an even higher level, just being able to do that, because I think it seems like she finds a lot of comfort in being able to have that communication with me, because I think sometimes sometimes she could tell like there was a lot weighing on me that I just wasn't saying. And she's definitely a person that just likes to know, and she likes to, I think, feel trusted in that way. And the fact that like now I know I can bring those things to her, it's like such a relief now when I'm feeling things like that I just and I realize I'm like, oh, I can actually just like talk to Lauren about this. And it sounds like such a simple like obvious thing, but for me that has been so huge to be able to do that and to have that now in my life and in our marriage. And it's really been, it's been good therapy for me, and it's been really powerful for our relationship. But it still is also hard to bring out those things and like say those things, like you talk about the lab values, like it wasn't going to change anything, but at the same time I could see from his perspective how it would be hard, like you're one of the things he cares about the absolute most in his life. And while he has fun golfing, it's not like his like greatest passion for life, you know?
Yeah. And
so he wants to be there like every step of the way and sharing that experience, like good or bad, with you, I would imagine. Yeah. So it really is a tough balance, and there's no good answer to it. There's no good solution. I think everybody just has to find what works best for them. But I would definitely recommend to people to, like, if you're somebody who doesn't like to open up a whole lot, or doesn't feel comfortable doing that a lot, or doesn't feel like you can because it's going to impact somebody else in some way, finding that one or those few people in your life that you really can do that with, and there's going to be like no judgment, no fear, nobody even like necessarily trying to fix it, just somebody that you can share in that experience with. It's a profoundly impactful thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you and I too are have made our purpose to help other people who are in this journey, or just people in general. I have always been a fixer. I want to do whatever it takes to make somebody happy, or big on gift baskets, like I love to put that out there. And I went through a really hard time where that's, my friends brought me out of it. My cancer friends brought me out of it, and it wasn't anything that anybody else was doing wrong or not, trying or giving, their everything to me. There was just a level of understanding with my cancer friends that nobody else has that perspective unless you're actually been through it, going through it. And, you use so many, you and Austin with your podcast and your races and, your incredible lifting and, all the things you do are, you portray this super positive all the time person, and anything you could do to make somebody's day brighter or better, you live that lifestyle, and I try in different ways to do that as well. And that too keeps me going a lot, I think. Excuse me. And it's hard when you are used to constantly putting forth that is your persona, letting Lauren or, whoever, your partner may be, letting that guard down when that is what you're constantly trying to portray.
Yeah, it is really tough, because you can program yourself into acting a certain way, where it's just like that switch flips and you're like, okay, I'm this person now, and it doesn't matter what's going on behind the scenes. You just wear that mask perfectly. And not that it's a mask like it's hiding your true self, it's a part of who you are, but none of us will ever exist in one state permanently all the time. I think generally keeping an air of positivity most of the time is a really good tool to have. But no matter who you are, you're going to have days where it's tough, and days where you want to give up, and days where you want to scream at the world, and days where you're just so frustrated out of your mind that you can't even figure out the next step forward. Like, we're all going to have those days. But you're absolutely right, because I've caught myself where I've allowed myself to wear that persona so much all the time, because it feels like it's like my duty in some ways, that I'm actually, I don't think I'm like hurting relationships, but I'm withholding the truth sometimes with certain relationships. I've gotten even better, because my training block here recently, coming into this big like ultimate kind of, I don't want to say final, but it's going to be like the last big powerlifting meet I do for a while, at least big serious meet. Coming into this, my training block has just been so tough. It's like every rep, every set has just felt like it's all the weight of the world on my back, and it's been so challenging. It's, I've not been where I want to be, but today I had a really good session, and that started with me chatting with one of the guys I've trained the most closely with, Pete Haynes, Danielle's husband and Emma's father, who's both have been on this podcast. And Pete is just such a wonderfully insightful guy. Like, he has a way of like understanding the challenges people face, and he never like tells you like this is what you have to do to fix it, but like he just offers so much insight of like paths forward of where you can go. And it's always such a profound experience talking with him. But it started this morning chat with him, and literally I just spent probably a half hour just like not complaining, but opening up about all these challenges and all these issues and everything I have and I'm facing. And he helped me through that session. And I've squatted with him maybe more than anybody else in the whole gym. And so he's seen me for years progress and develop, and we're working on some form changes right now. So he was able to offer me some tweaks in some ways that just totally changed my experience. And I walked out of there for the first time, and I can't even remember how long, feeling like I had a really good session today. You know, and I think so much of that is because I was able to open up about a lot of those challenges and frustrations I was having. If I had just pushed through and kept on that air of positivity regardless of how rough things were going, like I don't think I would have gotten that same level of direction and feedback and that same kind of ultimate solution moving forward. So I think it's really powerful to be able to open up about those things, but not only that, to be able to show that side to the people who follow your journey as well. And that's something Austin and I have tried to make a lot more conscious effort of, showing like the good days and the bad days, the challenges and the upsides. Because if you just focus on the positivity and the upside and the great parts of everything, then you can feel, a lot of people who follow you can feel a little disconnected. In the sense, because that's not how anybody's life goes. Nobody's life is positive all the time. And you never want them to feel disconnected from the journey you're on because it appears like you're living a different life than they are. You know, if you can show the bad days along with the good days, then I think it's so much more impactful, because you show them, hey, I have challenges too, I struggle too, I have bad days too, but here's what I do about it, here's how I work through it, and here's how I get back to the good side of everything. I think that speaks so much more to people, because it's just the truth of how life is. Not only that, it gives them solutions. It gives them a path forward to, here's how I can get out of this tough spot I'm in and into this, you know, here's how I can get more better days. Essentially.
And, you know, you don't, usually when you're posting on social media, you know, you don't want to be depressing. And, you know, post, you know, but also at the same time, I think people see all of that and think, oh, she's doing great, you know, and, you know,
and they want to see you doing great.
They want to see you doing great.
They want to see, like, oh, everything's going amazing for Leigh Ann.
But then, like, so earlier this year, I am so weak, and I have no muscle mass, and from all the dexamethasone and just, you know, 6 years of chemo every day and all of that. And so I, after my back surgery, I started doing, it wasn't required for my back, but more for a stamina purpose. I wanted to do physical therapy. Well, one, I didn't feel like I was getting much out of that particular one I was doing. And I would be in so much pain when I went home. And my body reacts now when I'm in pain, I sleep for days, and then I get annoyed and frustrated because I've just wasted time. And I started water physical therapy in February, and a couple of doctors had recommended it would be easier on my joints and muscles and all of that, and so excited. I love being in the water, so I was all aboard, all about it. Joey was a little pouty about it because he too wanted to be in the water, but he, you know, was a good boy and did his job, but mean mugged me every now and then because kind of a side eye, like, I really want in there. But anyway, about 3 or 4 weeks in, they told me initially that I'll be in a lot of pain the first several weeks, and after the 6th treatment it should start to get a little better. And I had just had my 6th treatment, and I came home and slept for 4 days straight, and then because I was in so much pain, and I was so excited for that 6th treatment too, you know, you know, Sean would wake me up to tried to get me my meds and, a little bit of water or something. Ended up with really bad dehydration sickness because I slept for 4 days, literally. And we were so I stopped going to water PT, and I had a break off of chemo because right now I am just doing every other week. And so it was my week off, and just to see how things went. And the following week, we were supposed to go to my in-laws for a long weekend. It was on my birthday. And that morning, Sean said, there's no way we're going. Like, this is going to make you so much worse. Traveling's hard on you, and you can barely get out of bed. We're not going. So then I got upset. I felt guilty that, I have amazing in-laws. I was excited to see them. And I ruined that trip. We didn't go, and I felt so guilty. And of course, my mother-in-law, she would have been mad at me if I did go. And she told me as much. And but still, you still have that. You just ruined an entire vacation for everybody. And then I called Strecker that day, the cancer center, and I was just bawling. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm in so much pain. I'm sleeping covered in ice packs, like nothing I have. I was taking stronger narcotics that I don't usually take unless it's detrimental. I can't take NSAIDs. Tylenol did nothing for that. And I was just sleeping through it. And I said, there's no way. I was supposed to go back on my chemo that night. And I said, I'm going off it until we can figure out what's happening with me or somebody can help me. I can't deal with chemo side effects and all of this pain. And then I was going to Florida, the following week, or the following month, I'm sorry. And I said, I'm just not going back on it until at least after that. And that's 7 weeks. Like, my numbers aren't normal, but they've been stable for a few years. So they just kind of let it ride. And a couple weeks later, there was the fashion show, and I fell off the back of the stage.
I don't think I heard about that.
Well, you just have that little, area.
It's tinier than it looks up there.
Yeah, and they have the stairs that had, like, the little plastic stairs that they wheel over, and it had the railing. Mm-hmm. And so I went up holding the railing. Well, the back was just a curtain. Mm-hmm. So I continued to try to hold the railing at the top, and I fell backwards because there is no railing, there's a curtain right before I was supposed to go on. So it was embarrassing and a whole thing, and just made me hurt myself more. And so I was in more pain, and I had my transplant birthday party a couple of days after that. And I called and I said, like, I can't stay awake. I need, like, help. And so she had me take 1 dexamethasone, and it took all the pain away. But it started coming back like 8:00 that evening. And usually, I'm pretty lightweight, and it only takes, 1 or 2 to kind of get me through what I'm going through. But I couldn't take any more than that because I had just had my 6th transplant tattoo, and more steroids would hinder the healing of my tattoo.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, so I couldn't take any more than 1. And I just kept telling him, like, you guys, something's wrong. Like, I'm not normally like this. I'm used to pain. I'm pain tolerant. Like, something's wrong. So they did a bunch of extra tests and whatnot, and I was anemic again. And but my C-reactive protein, which is my inflammation numbers, I think they're supposed to be like 1.9 or under.
Yeah, really as close to 0 as possible is ideal.
Yeah. And my normal is around like 7.5, 8. So I'm always high. But this time, after the dexamethasone, it was 38.6.
Oh my goodness.
So hello pain.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to see my orthopedic doctor, who's amazing, and he gave me a cortisone shot in each shoulder, but my knees were still so swollen, and by this time it had been 6 weeks, and that helped a lot. And then from there I was able to kind of get up and do a little more, and because when you can't move your arms without being in so much pain, that pretty much hinders anything you can do. But I didn't want to share that. Like, I have a blog on Facebook that I typically share my journey, and it's definitely gotten over the years progressively less of sharing, because I think I don't want to be negative and all the time, and Pete, like you said, people want to believe that you're doing great, and I did not post about it until I think maybe after Florida or right before Florida. So it had been almost a couple months, and I finally shared what I was going through and whatnot. But it's hard to kind of put depressing things out there. Yeah. But they do need to see that, and they appreciate seeing that. You're right. But it's hard to show. And for other cancer patients, you want to be positive for them, and you don't want to scare them and be depressing, because it may not be as bad for them. It may not happen to them in that way.
Or it may be worse for them,
Yeah.
And then you feel guilty because you're like, well, here I am talking about this, and this person's going through something way worse,
Yes.
Yeah, that can be tough too.
Yeah. I say that all the time with you too. Like, if I'm having a bad day and I can't get out of bed, like, I'll try to pep myself up and be like, okay, Leigh Ann, Matt's out there running 20 miles today with one, with a prosthetic leg, and you're fussing in bed because you're so tired.
No, I don't think you can claim that with me, because I view your challenges as like, and it's all subjective. We only have the frame of relativity of our own life experiences, so I can say I view your challenges as so much greater than mine, but it's like, really they're like the same. They're just different.
Yeah.
We all have only experienced the greatest amount of pain we've ever experienced. We all have only experienced the greatest amount of challenge we've ever experienced. And so it's hard to put, in some ways we have to put relativity to it, but it's like an impossible venture to try to like truly gauge it. So in that way it kind of becomes irrelevant. But I think the idea behind it is like, what drives and motivates me is thinking about so many people like you and like Michael and like Natalie and so many other guests we've had on this episode. I know Austin feels the same way. We think about, like, not only has there been times in our lives where we've not been able to do this stuff, but there's so many other people out there who have had times in their lives where they wished they had the strength and the energy and the stamina to go out and run a marathon.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I've got that capability now, it's like my responsibility to do that, because there's so many people who wish that they could, or at one point, wish they could. And I think that's really what drives and motivates us a lot in that way, because, like, similarly, there's so many days where this, like, mysterious sickness I've been battling for 5 years now, like, there's days where it takes every ounce of willpower in my body to get out of bed, and you know what that feels like. And there's like, but then there's some days where it's like, I wake up and I feel amazing, and we can't really find like what correlates with either of those days, but it's stuff we still work through and still battle through, and you still got stuff you got to show up for. I think the key is to build such an intensely strong purpose for your life that even though there's challenge, even though the how of getting out of bed, or even the when of getting out of bed may be up in the air given what the circumstances are that day, there's no question to the if. There's no question as to whether or not you will show up, because you will always show up in whatever way you need to show up.
Yeah.
And even if that's on days like where you have to sleep and recover, that's just so that you can show up for when it's your time to be able to show up. And we know that you will always do that for the people that matter most to you. And so I think that's really what pushes us in those moments, is like, I know I'm going to show up. Like, this isn't even a decision I have to make. Like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. I don't know yet how I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. I don't know when it's going to be able to happen, but I know I'll be there. And that really correlates with what we talk a lot about, having that unruly faith in your own potential. And it's unruly because if you look at the challenge ahead of you, it doesn't make sense that you should even chase whatever it is you're chasing, let alone be able to actually do it. But I think true faith has to be a little bit unruly, because if it's something that you feel super confident about, then it's not something you really have to have faith in.
Yeah.
Because for faith to be there, there has to be an element, and likely a strong element of uncertainty tied to it. To truly have strong faith, you have to have strong uncertainty in it. That doesn't mean you're reckless or you avoid or you like chase dangerous things or things like that. It just means that you're willing to believe in your own potential and in yourself and in those around you in the world and as a whole, that you can make things happen that shouldn't be able to happen.
Yeah.
Whatever those things are in your life, you know. And that's been such a powerful frame for us to chase, because it allows us to it allows Austin to battle through the 3 recurrences he's had of cancer. It allows me to keep chipping away day after day, even though like I'm fighting this illness, and it's hard when you have those moments of thinking like, man, what I wouldn't give just to have a healthy body. And I know you have to, like, you certainly share that sentiment as well. Yeah. Like it's like what I wouldn't give for that, you know. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't have a perfectly healthy body, it's like, that's certainly something worthy to pursue and to chase, but it's also the reality sometimes that you just may not have a perfectly healthy body.
Yeah.
But you can still build a perfectly healthy mentality and emotional strength and spiritual strength. And those don't have the same limitations that the body can find, pretty much no matter what situation you're in. And so being able to chase and maximize those can help, you know, pull the body along. And similarly, it's sometimes we have to remind ourselves, like, we may not have like an optimally healthy body in the way that we see it in this other person, but we do have a significant amount of health compared to so many other people we know, you know. So again, there's so much relativity to it that's really hard to define. But I think at the end of the day, we have to sometimes face the reality of like, this is what I've got today.
Yeah. What
can I do with it, you know?
And I think too that I've sort of learned that if I'm going to do something schedule-wise, then if it's at night, like Kennedy's party, we have a friend of ours who had cancer when she was 3, and I still can't wrap my head around all that she went through, and her parents, again, going back to like helplessness. That kills me, but she's such a, I felt awful all weekend, and I slept until about 6:45 that night. She had an evening party, and my mom's like, there's no way my husband, I'm sorry, said, there's no way she's going. And my mom said, oh, she said she's going hell or high water. She's going, I'm telling you. And I got up, fought through, but I knew that if I didn't just give in to my body and get that rest and sleep, there was no way I was going. So, you know, as much as you don't want to give in, and for me is frustrating a lot, you just kind of have to know and accept what your body needs to be able to go through with what you're trying to accomplish.
That's an important piece of that is it's not so much like accepting limitations as it is chasing. I prefer to view it as chasing your true purpose and what's truly meaningful in your life. And so if you're looking at the moments that are truly the most significant and important for you, like Kennedy's party, then sometimes you have to make plans to get there and to make it happen. You know, like you have to get extra rest, you have to get extra sleep, you have to put your body in the best position possible to be able to perform when you need it most. And I think that's just incredibly strategic planning and an incredible strength to know that about yourself and to give yourself what you need. Because like you say, like at the end of the day, we could just try to push and push and push until there's absolutely nothing less. But does that really get you what you want out of life? Does that really serve the purpose you want for your life? And that's been a big journey that Austin and I both had to go on over the last year, but really most intensely over the last 6 months or so. This idea of highly prioritizing like the most important things for us, listing it out and like looking at what we're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis and saying like, is what we're spending our time on serving those priorities in the way we want? Because as much as I love powerlifting and strength training and competing, my own like personal athletic performance is my fourth priority on that list. But there's been, for the last couple of years, I've really been treating it as if it were higher on that list. And it creates a lot of discord in my life because then you develop like negative feelings toward that thing because it's taking away from things that you know are actually more important for you. And just a whole list of where things can go with that. But it's been a big realization for us to look at it and say like, hey, the more we live in accordance with what we know our priorities are, and those priorities can change at any point. Like you kind of constantly have to go back to them and revisit them to make sure like, is this still how I want my life mapped out? And I think that's a good thing, but you have to be able to give yourself the time and the grace and the planning and everything you need to actually maximize what it is you want for your life, whatever that may be for you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge skill in and of itself, but I feel like people can so often and so easily develop these like negative, almost spiteful feelings towards sometimes people, but also things that they do in life just because they feel like they have to they have to do this thing, they have to put this energy into this thing even though they don't want to. And it can be kind of a negative path to go down if you allow yourself to go down that. But on the converse, you can build an incredibly positive path and an incredibly positive discipline by doing what you just laid out, like knowing how important that was for you to be at Kennedy's party and to celebrate her and what she's done, and then mapping out like, this priority's here on my list. How do I need to construct my day so that, or the days before that or the weeks before that or whatever it is, so that I get there, I'm performing at a high level. And not only that, I'm still serving the other priorities that are also important to me in whatever order that may be. And sometimes that looks like more rest, more recovery, you know, and while those are not as glamorous on social media, you know, like nobody's posting about, I slept 10 hours last night, like I'm such an inspiration.
Yeah. But then you have the people like, oh, I would kill for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, although we, you know, would kill for a normal, healthy body, you know, this other person is looking at you and saying, oh man, I would kill just to be able to sleep and have, you know, all day long. Yeah. So everybody is, you know, everybody is always going to, you know, have their own issues and wish for, you know, something different.
Yeah. But, and that's where we found it just to be so much more of a beneficial, joyful practice to focus more on like the gratitude for what you do have rather than like the want and desire for what you don't have. Just because like the old phrase of be careful what you wish for, you know, you can apply that to anything, you know, like I may say, I wish I could go out and run a marathon every day, but it's like, well, do I really want to spend 5+ hours running every day and take it away from our business and my family and all, you know, so there's good and bad to everything. But I think the best thing we can do, and it's good to want more and to want to pursue more and to have a drive for building more for the things you're actually truly passionate about and that serve your purpose in life. But when you can step back and develop true gratitude for the ability and everything and the health and everything you do have in this moment, that we've found is so much more positively serving to the goals and the direction, the purpose that anybody has in life.
Yeah. And I think for me that there's so much planning involved. You know, I was on chemo every day with no break for several years, and my, you know, regimen has changed throughout the years to different dosages and days, and you know, I know, like, I have my bonus kids, I call them, they were my child's best friends growing up, and then now with their fiancés, but they've stayed local, and so they come over and spend the night once a month, and I plan when I'm going to be feeling better, and of course they, you know, get up and make me breakfast and spoil me, and, you know, I love a house full of kids or family of, you know, I'm the weird person that loves family reunions.
Lauren does too. Like, she loves having people over. She loves community. She loves family, and I think that's one of the most beautiful parts about her is how much joy she finds. That when most people would find, like, they would find that as a nuisance or annoying or things like that, having a ton of people in their house. I think that's such an incredible gift when you naturally find joy in those things.
Yeah. So everything just, you know, try to plan around when you know it's should be a better day during your cycle or your times or whatnot, and you know, try to plan around vacations and different things. And I think I've done it long. We were talking about this earlier a little bit. I've been on chemo for 6.5 years constantly, and while I'm not where I should be in my numbers, I've been stable for so long that I can tell them, look, I need a break. And they talk it through with me, you know, and we make a plan together. But I think that sometimes if you're able and you feel like that's best for you and your body to recharge, and that you have to kind of advocate a little bit to know what you need at that point in time.
Yeah, and I think it's really that, back to that, but not battle, but that topic we talked about of quality versus quantity. And that's something that's come up off and on the show since the beginning, because it's really prevalent for somebody battling cancer, because the treatment for cancer can diminish the quality of life so much to the point that the quantity becomes not even worth it if you allow it, and if it gets to that point. And every situation is different, and what everybody wants is different, and it's okay for each person to want whatever they want. But it's a very delicate balance. But I do think it's something we always need to recognize, that, like, even like your levels being where they should be. Well, it's like, what does should even mean? Like, are they where they should be for what you want out of life, or for what the healthcare team's goals are for you, you know? And realistically, and I know you have an amazing team, that they're going to want whatever goals you want out of life. And there's no surefire answer to that equation, but nobody wants to live 100 years if they're going to be too sick to get out of bed the entire time, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of that idea. So you do have to be able to develop this, becomes an art form in a way, of knowing your body so well, knowing your treatment so well, and knowing how you're going to respond to different things and what you're going to need in different situations to make sure that you're getting as much quality as you can with the quantity of life you're chasing through the efforts of treatment.
And then luckily I have an amazing medical team who doesn't push. And I currently have been, my maintenance is an oral pill. And so I take it at night before bed, and just as part of my, 30 some pills I take every day, and then go on with it. And they have been, both of my doctors have been lightly suggesting that it might be a better fit for me to switch chemos. And because this one, as the years go by, new things start happening. Like the anemia thing has been, I've dealt with it a few times this last year, but not before that. Before that, they took me off every day because my white blood count kept tanking and my ANC. And so maybe it might be a little easier on my body if I tried this other one, chemo. But that chemo entails going to the cancer center for treatment every week. And that's a mindset that, although this other chemo might, in fact, give me a better quality of life, it's in my head that I can't get past at the moment. And I hear myself say it, like, this is, you sound ridiculous. Like, if this could give you a better quality of life, why aren't you trying it? But then it's a mindset of going in for treatment all the time again, instead of just putting back that pill with a cup of your other pills. Like, it makes it more real.
I'm really, really glad you brought this up, actually, because it's not a place I would have thought to go to, but it's very important that optimizing for quality of life is all well and good, but the road to get there can have its own challenges that can be extremely impossible to overcome. And it's perfectly how you brought it up. It's your identity is what it is.
Yeah. Like
right now, just taking a pill every day, you can live your life not feeling or not having this aspect of your life that identifies you as a quote unquote sick patient or a sick person, or even like a cancer patient. You can have that stronger air of normalcy with it.
Yeah.
But by going to a cancer center every week to get chemo injections or infusions or whatever it may be, even if we said, yes, it'll give you a better quality of life, the challenge that it would bring to your identity, which is not something that you can just like breeze over or look past, because your identity and how you see yourself and how you view yourself, that is an incredibly core and crucial and centric part of who you are in your entire life. So it's not something we can take lightly. And so we have to be able to add that to the equation as well, because it's an incredibly important part. And I know if Austin were here, he would definitely very strongly relate to this point, because that's something that I know he deeply struggles with as well. And in fact, I think there's times where for him, the chemo isn't even as bad as having to go to, I think specifically of the Cleveland Clinic Cancer Center, because that's where he's gone through his most difficult times, of just like everything is white there. And it's so, to somebody who's a patient or even like a caregiver, it's so annoying. Like the walls are white, the floors are white, the nurses wear all white scrubs. Like it is just so annoying. I'm sure a lot of other people share that sentiment, but it's just, it gives that same kind of like air and feeling of like, this is like a sterile, clean medical field, you know? Yeah. And it's awful for the patients, I think, and I know it was tough for him, but just having to walk down those hallways, sit in that chair, you know, be the patient, be the sick person, that was deeply challenging to his identity. And I know in a lot of ways that was as hard, if not harder, than the chemo sometimes. And so I know he definitely relates to that perspective. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's true for so many people, yet I think it's often so overlooked by, and not to anybody's fault, but I think from the medical team's perspective, it's easy to look and say like, oh, well, this will make you feel a lot better. Why would you not chase this? Like, who cares if you come to a cancer center? Who cares? But until you've been there, it's really hard to understand that, it really does matter. Like, I don't want to identify as a sick person. I don't, even though you have days that are incredibly challenged, like, I don't see you as a sick person. I see you living life at a much higher potential and quality than a lot of people who are quote unquote totally healthy, you know? So it's like, I don't see you as a sick person. I know you don't see yourself as a sick person. And so to put yourself in that position where you create an atmosphere around you that would kind of label you as a quote unquote sick person is extremely, extremely challenging. And not just challenging, but like contradictory to your identity, like how you see yourself and how you live your life. Yeah.
And, you know, to some aspect, I tell myself out loud sometimes, like, Leigh Ann, you're being ridiculous. Like, just go try it. Like, you're like, if it could even, you know, make you less tired 2 days a week or a month, you know, like, just try it. You could always go back. But I'm not there yet. I'm trying hard to be there yet, but I hate that Austin has to go through the same thing, but I'm glad to some extent that it makes me feel less crazy about it.
No. And again, it's like, I would love for him, and we'll have this conversation sometime, you know, even if it's off mic, we'll have to have this conversation, because I know he would have great insight into this area. Because I do know that he's faced a lot of those challenges. I will say it's not something that I've personally had to face as much, but I think it's just not something that I'm like that's just not a challenge I'm hardwired to face. Whereas, you know, we all have different challenges that we're hardwired to face in different ways, and that was not one that I like ever really felt that strongly. But I do know that there's a lot of people who do, and I can definitely recognize, because I've seen it in him, how tough of a challenge that can be for somebody. I don't think it's ridiculous though, because your identity is so crucial. Like we said, it's so crucial to everything you are, and it's so crucial to your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. And while we can say like we're optimizing for quality of life, well, there's more to that than just how you feel physically. Yeah. Because there's people out there who are in perfect, pristine physical health, and yet they can't go do anything because of how much they struggle with their mental health or their emotional health. And that's nothing against them. It's just different people face different challenges. But if you challenge or contradict your personal identity in such a matter, it's going to bring detriment to your mental, emotional, and spiritual health as well. And that may end up in a net negative quality of life, because all of those other domains play into it as well. Even if you feel physically better, you may feel so much more mentally and emotionally challenged that it's net negative, you know?
Yeah.
And that's certainly not me trying to talk you out of it, but it's me like understanding, like I could see how this could be such a challenging thing to come to terms with as well. And I don't know that there's an easy, quick 10-word solution to it.
Yeah.
Other than I think what you're already doing is coming to terms with it and, you know, finding a way of like, is there a path that I can get to where I can basically feel I can work through the challenge that provides to my personal identity to the point that I can go into it in a good state that will allow me to hopefully get some physical benefit and not have to be controlled by some of the mental, emotional, and spiritual challenges it brings. And I think it's just a process like everything else, you know, and something you've got to work through on your own time, on your own terms. And, you know, eventually, you know, if you keep down that path and keep working toward that, you'll likely get to a spot where you feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But it's a process and a challenge to work through, just like any other part of this we discuss.
And I think that the problem with multiple myeloma is that the chemo stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
It's very typical for a myeloma patient to bounce from chemo to chemo. And the one I'm on has been the one that has been used for the longest. So a part of me too feels like I should get the most out of it that I can. But also starting this other one, you have to be pretty strict initially. Yeah. And so I know that I have a couple trips coming up, and we always go to Florida in September. So I have it in my head, okay, Leigh Ann, you have until you get back from Florida in September, and then, you know, you're going to have to get over yourself and, you know, just give it a try. You can always go back. So that's my current mindset, that I've set a goal and a date.
And I think that's good too. Like, put it on a timeline, or else you can expand it to an infinite time horizon.
Yeah.
But I think that's good. Like, I want to let myself have this time to put in these pieces of my life that I want to have, but I'm going to give myself this timeline. And whether it ends up being September when you do it, or it ends up being December or next March or whenever, it's good to have these timelines, even if they change over time, just to give yourself a time frame to work on, you know, more than anything else. But I would definitely urge you to not view it as something like, I just need to get over this, or I sound ridiculous, because it's really not. And to maybe view it as something like, this is a challenge that I have to work through, just like dealing with pain or dealing with fatigue or anything else. This is a challenge I have to work through, and it's something I know I can work through, but it's going to take time and effort and energy and focus. But I'm strong enough. I've built a mental, emotional, and spiritual strength that I know I can overcome this, and I will get through this somehow. And I think empowering yourself in a way to not like belittle your challenge is a really powerful tool to add to it. Giving the challenge the validity that it deserves, honestly, almost empowers you, because it makes you feel better about yourself as you overcome it and when you ultimately overcome it. Yeah. So
we'll see. It'll be fine.
Well, I gotta say, I am just so I love, even though they're not always easy, I do love having conversations like this. And I love every interaction I get with you, because you provide such a powerful perspective. And it's always so fascinating to like hear you talk, you know, in these more like long form segments, because even when we talk about identity, like, you don't view yourself as a sick person. I don't ever view you as a sick person. Like, every time I see you, I just see nothing but like a symbol of strength. And that's so cool for me, that I'm blessed to have so many people in my life that I view in that way. Like, you just did a 5K yesterday morning, right?
Me? No.
Oh, no.
Michaelin did.
Michaelin did it.
But she
But you were there for it,
invited me to go to do it with her, and I told her I wouldn't be out of bed for 6 months if I did that. But she is, for anybody that knows her or has heard of her, gosh, she's incredible.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. We also had her on the podcast. You guys would have to scroll back. I want to say it's like in the 50s somewhere, but we'll link it down in the show notes so you can have it if you need.
Gosh, she did a 5K. She walked it. Her husband ran it, but this is her second year, I think, doing it. And she's incredible.
Yeah.
But I mean, we all are to each other, and not necessarily in a physical sense, but I think we've all built these relationships that we most likely never would have came across or known of or been part of something in their story. And I am so grateful for that. That's something that keeps me going. I know I've told Michael and, all of my cancer acquaintances and friends that I'm in awe of you and your story and your baby and Miss Lily LaRue.
Yeah, she's pretty special. I'll definitely give you that one.
Yeah, she's and what a goal of yours that you never thought that you might have, and she's perfect and healthy and incredible. And absolutely. I'm so happy for you and Lauren. Yeah,
it's we've talked about it on the podcast before, and I don't even remember when or how, but I truly believe that because of and not everybody knows the story of like what we went through to get here, and specifically what Lauren went through to get here. To be able to have this little girl that we're so blessed to have, it's my personal favorite story of strength, like of all time that I've ever experienced. But because I think we went through, again, so much challenge, just like you talk about how you and Sean have had to work through so much challenge in your lives, in your relationship together, with everything, you guys have battled through together. It can bring this level of appreciation and beauty and joy to life that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And I've said before, like, I believe like my capacity to love her is so much more infinite than it would have been otherwise if we hadn't gone through those challenges, or if we hadn't gone through, if I hadn't even gone through so many of the challenges I've gone through in my life, because I do it quite frequently. Like, I look at her and I just think like about everything we went through to get here and how every moment of it was so worth it. But I can't look at her without thinking of what a miracle it is that she even exists. And that's such a special part of my life that I'm just so thankful for. But like you said, I'm equally as thankful for all of the relationships that we've gotten to build through this, horrible, awful, horrendous disease that we would never wish on anybody. At the same time, our lives have been changed in so many ways for the better because of it. And I think part of that is because we've allowed that to happen. And not only have we allowed that to happen, but we've gone out and actively sought opportunities for that to happen. And then the greatest moments are like what you just did for Kennedy, or when we can give that to somebody else, and particularly somebody as young and innocent and strong as a child. Like there's just not words to describe those moments in life.
No, she's an amazing little kiddo.
She really is.
I think I may have been more excited than she was at first. I just wanted it. She deserves just all the things. And she's so sweet and humble. And for as young as she is and all that she's went through, I think it could, cause so many, setbacks and behavioral, issues, maybe just the whole thought of growing up and dealing with all of that trauma. And she's just the sweetest little girl, and brave, so brave. I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine.
Yeah. It is so like wild to think about, but at the same time, there's something so pure about not just the innocence of a child, but like the strength of a child.
Yeah.
And I know it was Allie Berry when she was on the podcast. We were talking about that because we were both treated at children's hospitals, but we were basically adults at the time, like 17, 18 years old. And when you're going through cancer and you're watching this 5-year-old go through it right beside you, but the 5-year-old is like running up and down hallways hooked up to an IV pole that the nurse is trying to like keep up with. It's just like there's something so beautiful about those moments that like it puts you in this place of like, oh, I have no problems, because like look at this child, look how strong they are in the face of this, and here I am sitting over here like worried about my life and feeling bad or feeling sorry for myself. But then you see that child just like living their life to the highest potential. You're like, no, I have to battle through this with strength because they can do it and they're doing it, and I'm going to do it for them even if I can't do it for myself in this moment. And that, again, that's a gift in its own right. But I think that part never really leaves us. I think we all still have access to that part. Sometimes we just have to go through things in life to help rediscover it, And I think you're such a testament to that, of facing all of these challenges, working through them, overcoming them, being truthful and transparent with all of them, but still having that childlike joy and strength about you. And I think that's one of the things I find most empowering and most inspiring in the message you put out, and the story that you live, and the life that you lead. And so that's why I'm so thankful. We're so thankful to have you as a friend, and to have you as an inspiration in our lives, but also to have you and your voice and your message on our show. It's a huge honor to be able to capture that, because that same story and that same voice is going to resonate so powerfully for so many people.
Thank you. I think that's all I hope to do anyway. If I can help anybody.
I had a friend who's been on the podcast several times. Another one of the most unbelievably inspirational stories of just pure strength and resilience that I've had the opportunity to witness and be a part of in my life. JD, he told me one time, he had this line, I've never forgotten it since he said it. It's been such a core guiding principle, and I think so much of it encompasses everything we talked about in the episode today. But he said, people will never remember you for what you do. They'll always remember you for how you made them feel. And I think that's just such a powerful message to live by. Because when you think about it, and like we talked about earlier in the episode, there's going to be a day when we're no longer here. And we don't know when that is. We hope it's a long time from now. But and it's true of anybody, but I think it's more ever present when you've gone through some of the physical health challenges that we've gone through. But I find a great deal of solace in thinking, like, when that day comes, my goal is for people to always think of me in terms of the joy and positivity I brought them. And when I think of it that way, it actually really empowers me and motivates me and drives me to live every day serving that purpose. So, because those feelings will always stick with the people that I have the opportunity and the honor to get to know and interact with and be a part of in this life. And I find so much comfort in thinking about, like, when I have to acknowledge and think about the fact that that day is going to come at some point, at least, hopefully, if I do everything right and enough and at the proper intensity along the way, at least everyone will be left at that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And I don't know that we could ever ask much more from life than that.
Yeah, I think that is the best thing that you can leave somebody with.
For sure. But I want to talk about, as we wrap up here, I want to talk about the book that's sitting here. Because I still, like, I look at this and I'm like, I keep staring at it because I think it's just the coolest thing ever.
Thanks.
I'm so amazed by and impressed
by. What do you think?
by.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Joey definitely thinks it's pretty cool, huh?
Because I have my own chapter.
Does he really?
Yeah.
He should, like, sign copies with his Paul.
Yeah, with his Paul, yeah. I probably sell more copies. Joey has his own fan base, don't you, bud?
I'm sure he does. I'm just so amazed at people who, like, self-publish books, because it's, as you know better than I do, it's such a challenging process to be able to do. And here it is, just like a full, legitimate, hard copy book that you created out of nothing. Like there was nothing before, and now this book is sitting here. Yeah. And I've got to ask, like, what does it mean to have this, and what can it offer to those who pick it up and read it?
This book was really hard for me to write because I'm always the positive. I'm fine. Don't like to post the negative things. But once I finished it and published it, I have had so many people from other countries, Australia, several countries in Europe, Canada, just so many people reach out and continue a couple years later, saying that while they loved the book and felt like it was their story, the more important part to them is they could give it to their family members and friends that they were having a hard time communicating how they were feeling and dealing with. Once they finish it, give it to those people so that those people close to them could have an insight to them that they couldn't bring themselves to tell them. And so being that obviously the patients are near and dear to my heart, fellow survivors of any cancer, but the fact that it's helping their extended family and friends, maybe even some people have given it to their healthcare providers and said, this is what I'm feeling, help. So it's helped people in that way, and that is far beyond anything that I thought would happen, and that just really fills my heart with so much joy and more that's what is happening with it still to this day. So I'm really proud of it.
That's awesome. That's incredible. We'll put the links down in the show notes, but it's available on Amazon, right?
Yes.
And what's do people search the title or your name? What's the best way to find it?
Either one. It's called I'm Not Fine, but I'm Surviving Cancer. And it's on Amazon, Books A Million, Lulu Press is where it's published. So sometimes I think you might find it a little cheaper on there. But and locally I have them if anybody needs one. And Wit and Whimsy in Marietta sells them.
That's awesome. It's got to be cool to, like, have you ever, like, been in a store and you, like, see your book and you're like, that's my book.
Yeah, it's kind of weird cool sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, one of my friends, I think we were talking earlier, actually, I don't think it was on here. One of my OBGYN, so not my oncologist or anything, she bought a bunch to pass out to some of her patients that were, you know, going through cancer as well. And I started talking to and am friends with one of her patients I never would have met, not the same cancer or anything like that, but you know, so those relationships I think are the most surprising out of it as well.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those pieces where now that this book is created, it will be around forever. And it's always something people will have to refer to in times when they need it most. And it will give people that feeling of whatever it is they need, comfort, solace, like, I'm not okay, but I'm working through it.
Yeah.
Whatever this challenge may be. And in that way, you'll always be giving people that feeling, that support that they need in times they need it most, in ways that you never even could have expected, like you said. So I think those are some of the very greatest things we can do, and the very greatest things we can chase in life, is to build things of that manner. So just so much respect for you for being able to do it. We'll have it linked in the show notes. But the last thing I wanted to ask, because we spent a lot of especially the first part of this episode chatting about Sean and your guys' relationship and everything he's meant to you. I wanted to know, like, if you could say one thing to him about everything you guys have been together. And I know this isn't an easy topic.
Yeah.
But if you could say like one thing to him, kind of encompassing your entire journey together, what would it be?
Thank you for being the incredibly amazing person that you are, and for being my person and the one who loves me indefinitely and wholeheartedly. I'm just so blessed with our relationship and our communication and respect for each other. I think that is huge. I think our any marriage, especially going through cancer during COVID, and our restrictions of not going anywhere, and of course you went to work every day, but other than that, if you can make it through COVID without, wanting to run away from each other, especially during everything that, all this stress that just cancer itself puts on a relationship. We just, we don't fight. It's just, we have such a mutual admiration and love and respect. And we talk all the time. We will just stay up talking still to this day. We always want to tell each other anything and everything that's going on. And I think if you could find that in a relationship, especially when there's so much other outside, especially now, so many relationships are political, and there's so much stress with relationships now. I think when you don't necessarily agree politically, and it's so sad and heartbreaking that things can be like that, now. But I think just in any relationship, but especially in a marriage, if you can have that respect and communication with each other, I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here today, Leigh Ann. Thank you for everything you are and everything you're doing for everybody in your life. And I'm excited for you to have a great summer, go on all the trips you want to go on, and just continue the journey that you're battling through and living and thriving in every day. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and for continuing to, go on this journey together with me, and, sharing your family with me, and just all that you do for everybody on this podcast. And it's really great.
It's our life's greatest honor to be able to do this. I know I speak for Austin and I both when we say that. So, guys, this has been a phenomenal episode. As you know, the only thing we ever ask on this show, we're not asking you to buy anything. We're not asking you to subscribe to anything. We're not asking you to commit to anything, except if you can share this episode with anyone in your life whom you think it would positively impact. And we know that there are so many people in your life that this episode and stories like Leigh Ann's will positively benefit. Please share it with them, because at the end of the day, that is how we live out our mission and our vision at Impossible Performance, which we read at the beginning and end of every single episode we do and have done since the beginning. We want to spread these stories, spread this mindset, spread this message as far as we possibly can, because Austin and I know the power it's had to totally change the lives that we lead, and still to this day changing and growing and developing the actions we take on a daily basis. So please share this message with anybody whom you think it would help in your life. It's the only thing we ever ask. And thank you for being a part of everything we do, because at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you guys for listening, and as always, be impossible.